Hi, so let's get into the stages of the SCA framework. So let's look at the first stage, which is the shaping stage. So this is where obviously we're starting to try and um, narrow the focus to try and decide where our focus is going to be for the particular project. So let's look at shaping. So the shaping mode, as it's called within SCA. So what we're looking for initially is to identify what are called decision areas. So a decision area is any area of choice within which decision makers can conceive alternative courses of action. Okay, so basically we're trying to identify decision areas which managers feel that they might need to take decisions. Now, so for example, things like whether to pursue a particular course of action, how to achieve a particular objective, where to locate a new development or a new factory, who should be responsible for a new task. So if we're looking to allocate resources, when some agreed action should be initiated. But essentially, the managers will obviously come into the room, come into the project with decision areas already in their minds, and we want to try and capture those and identify what they are. That there will also be to some degree a learning process involved here. So as managers look at decision areas being identified and defined, that might trigger them to come up with more, and that's absolutely fine because at the moment we're just trying to gather what those decision areas might be. So decision areas can be specific opportunities or they can be broader policy issues, so that there's no restriction there. We're not trying to sort of avoid anything at this stage. Now, once we've started to identify decision areas, which is really like a brainstorming type process, then we try and collect those together onto a decision graph. Now, if the map contains more than 4 elements or more than 4 decision areas, then we're going to have to start to restrict our focus. So we'll need to sort of select from all of those decision areas, because at the end of the day, this needs to be a practical process. We can't look at everything. So obviously we want to sort of keep it very wide open and allow people to identify decision areas, but we are going to have to sort of narrow it down for this actual particular project. Otherwise we will get too bogged down in detail. Now let's take a relatively straightforward example. So this is a manufacturing example, just to keep things fairly tangible and straightforward. So in this particular organization, they've identified 9 decision areas. Now this is a manufacturing company that makes instruments for boats. And they've identified these 9 decision areas, which let's just go through them systematically. So we've got retain reserved site. Okay, so that's relatively straightforward. We've got which operation to move from our present site. So clearly they're thinking of moving some operations to a new site. Whether to lease a plot of land in a new industrial park. So that's a specific decision. When to invest in new packing technology. So that's a timing question. So enter new instrument markets. So that's very much a decision about their strategic development. Change name of company. Raise new capital. acquire local transport firm, and we've got expand packaging market. Okay, so these are obviously a fairly random set of decision areas that have been identified by the managers within this organization. So we've put them on a piece of paper, and of course this could be on a flip chart on a wall. So we've put them on a piece of paper, and the next thing that we want to do is to try and explore these decision areas to see to what extent they are related and to evaluate them to some degree. Okay, so what we're trying to do here is to explore those decision areas in terms of three key criteria, which are importance, urgency, and connectedness. So we explore connectedness by essentially drawing lines between decision areas which seem to be connected to each other. Okay, and then we will do a double line around decision areas which we think are particularly important. So we can see here that we've got two which have double lines. So we've got enter new instrument markets, and we've got change name of company. And then we've got dashed lines around the outside of decision areas which we think are urgent. So there's obviously a time element to those particular decision areas. So we can see we've got urgent as raise new capital, we've got acquire local transport firm, we've got when to invest in new packaging technology, and we've got which operations to move from the present site. Okay, so that's a process of exploring the decision areas and trying to evaluate them in terms of how they're connected, how important they are and how urgent they are. Now, what we really want to do, because we've got a lot of decision areas there, 9, we want to focus in if we can. And so in this particular case, the managers decided to focus on 4 of those decision areas, and we've put a boundary around that. So you can see it says boundary of selected problem focus. So what we're going to do is, for the time being, we're going to ignore some of those decision areas, and we're going to focus on the 4 in the center there, which is which operations to move from present site, when to invest in new packaging technology, enter new instrument markets, acquire local transport firm. So that's going to be our problem focus for this particular project. Okay, so that's the shaping stage finished, and in the next video we'll have a look at design.